Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of my series that I'm calling Bag Bag. Beating all Game Boy Advance games. Each game is randomly selected, so I never know which game I'm going to be forced to play next. But without further ado, let's get into today's game. Released in 2007 and developed by Magic Pockets, we have Ghost Rider for the Game Boy Advance. Now I want to start off that I did not understand until basically during the editing of this video that this is a Marvel superhero game, or I guess anti-hero game. I don't really know anything about Ghost Rider, so to me it was just another sort of made up video game character. Anyway, moving on. So I actually selected the human difficulty here, even though the angelic is the one that is pre-highlighted. One of the rules of this challenge is I really only have to play the games on the pre-selected difficulty level, so I could have done this one on angelic, but I chose to do it on the human. So then you have these cutscenes that, from my understanding, this is how the story goes. You have a dad named Barton Blaze who has cancer. You make a deal with a stranger who is Mephisto, I believe that's how you say his name, and he cures your dad of cancer, but he turns you into a Ghost Rider. Mephisto is also named the Demon Lord, and he turned you into this Ghost Rider because he needs you as an agent in hell. That's what I'm understanding from this. Then he sends this other weird demon thing up to get you and bring you down to hell. Look, I could be completely wrong about that. You can pause and read the cutscenes and you can come up with your own conclusion. But anyway, let's get into the game. The first chapter of this game is called Escape from Hell, and I think it's kind of funny because as soon as you spawn in, there's nothing that's really hellish about this area. The first thing that I noticed is how insanely awesome the animations are. No, because seriously, why is the animation in this game so much better than 95% of the animations in pixel games these days? This game looks freaking great! Once you leave this beginning area, you get a screen that talks about what the different color of orbs do, how to obtain the orbs, as well as telling you to go into the select menu to buy upgrades using the orbs that you collected. Dude, this is the first Game Boy game that has actually given us a semi-little tutorial, which is sadly extremely true, but I super appreciate it. So that's AAA. BBB. Oh my god, there's so much stuff. Pushback is right plus B. How am I gonna remember all this? Yeah, that's the fun part. I don't. So after walking through that door, we can finally see that we are in fact in hell. In fact, we are in hell's depths. After we walk a little bit farther, you'll see that all of these enemies start to spawn and you have to just sit there and kill them all. And honestly, that's kind of the whole entire premise of this game. You essentially just make your way through the level, which are pretty linear, and along the way, groups of enemies spawn, you kill them, and you progress. The biggest thing in each level that you'll want to look out for are these treasure chests. They typically have quite a bit of orbs in them, and you kind of need the purple orbs because without purple orbs you can't upgrade your attacks, and without upgrading your attacks you don't really get that far. One thing I thought that was pretty funny is once you get to the end of the first section, a screen pops up that tells you how to jump. But the funny part about that is you needed to know how to jump to even get to that place. I just thought it was pretty funny for me praising this game for having an on-screen tutorial and then it completely letting me down. Continuing on, the rest of the stage is pretty much the exact same thing. You progress a little bit, you get into a spawn zone, they spawn, you kill them, you continue on. So one thing that is really cool about this game is it has a lot of moves that you can do. So here we learn how to grab someone and punch them. You're also able to grab someone with your chain and pull them towards you and also punch them that way. This game is also full of these little mini bosses that you find throughout each level. When I first encountered this one, I had no idea what to do. I was trying absolutely everything, all of my moves, since there's a million of them, I was trying to press all of them, and nothing I could do seemed to hurt this guy. I did notice that when he tried to attack me, it was laying down, I could hit him that way, but then it was really hard to lure him into doing that. The nice thing about this game is when you die, you don't start from the beginning of the level like you did with the XXX game that we did, you just start from the previous screen that you entered. After trying and failing a couple more times, I decided to look at the tutorial because I figured it couldn't be that impossible. Turns out it's not. If you hold up and left or up and right, you actually swing your chain on a diagonal. This allows you to easily hit his head, and that's how he takes damage. So it turns out maybe it's not as easy as I thought, although pressing up and left and up and right on a tiny ass D-pad is pretty hard. And the unfortunate part is, if you lose all your lives, you have to start that level over again. When you finally defeat him, he drops a bunch of orbs that fully heal you, give you your full mana bar back, and a bunch of experience points. And that's the end of the first section of the first quote-unquote world. One thing I would just like to note is this game took me about 3 hours to beat, and the first section of the first world took me 30 minutes. If that just kind of goes to show how short this game is. After beating the first level, we get another little cutscene that says the dungeon to the north is certainly where Mephisto is. Oh, by the way, editor note here. Yeah, I'm also the editor of these. I looked it up. It's either some people say Mephisto or Mephisto. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is, but I'm just going to keep calling it Mephisto. So I hope that doesn't make people mad. So if you've been paying attention to this cutscene, you can see here that this next level is going to be a motorcycle riding level. Something I would just like to note here, since I'm editing this video, I saw right now that it said press R to boost when you see the boost symbol come up. Obviously, I read this when I was playing the game, but I was so confused because there are so many controls in this game that I never pressed R to boost in this entire playthrough. So if you've been watching our series so far, you'll notice how similar this is to the motorcycle sections in the game XXX. I actually thought that this was made by the exact same developer for how similar it was in almost every way, that I looked it up, and no, it's not the same developer at all. It's just almost identical. So each of these motorcycle levels kind of work the same way. You'll see an icon at the top that tells you what to expect, so you have to fight these gangs. You can either hit them or you can shoot them. There are also these boost zones, which of course I didn't know what to do. And then you also have the caution zones, which just means you have to watch out for the obstacles. If you hit too many obstacles, your health will go down and you'll have to restart it over from the beginning. Also, towards the end of this level, there's a sort of mini boss that you have to beat by shooting and avoiding the rocks that he's throwing behind him. And once we beat the level, we also unlock a new move. Continuing on to the next level, we are introduced to these bat things. I'm sure that they're probably part of the Marvel Universe and have a specific name, and they're probably someone's favorite. I don't know what they are. I don't know anything about this Marvel character or this universe, so to me they're just flying fire bats. Entering the door on the right, we are now in the fortress. And just to show you guys what I mean by this game is the exact same thing, I'm going to speed up this section of gameplay so you can see that it is essentially just running around and defeating the same enemies. When I say that this game is very linear and repetitive, I truly mean that. This game is so linear to the point that when you defeat the enemies in the area, there's a big arrow at the top of the screen that will tell you which direction you should be going in. Mostly because the game knows that if you go in the other direction, there's nothing there for you. And when we finally get to the end, we are faced with a boss that is the exact same as the previous one, just a different color. So I've already said this and I'm going to keep reiterating it. I don't know anything about this movie. I don't know anything about this universe. So maybe this is a thing. Maybe there are multiple types of this monster that are just different color. I have absolutely no idea. But as someone who just picked up this game and is playing it, I'm just extremely aware that this is a copy paste of the previous boss and it's a little bit repetitive. After beating that boss in the exact same way as the previous boss, we finish the level and we unlock 2 new moves. After that, another cutscene plays telling us how we've killed a lot of Hell's abominations, but we still haven't figured out how to get out of there. Mephisto spookily jumps out and tells us that we can only leave on his terms. He goes on to say how there are demons on Earth and he made a pact with heaven to ensure that that wouldn't happen. He then blackmails us by forcing us to clean up his mess, or Roxanne, who I'm assuming is our wife, will be killed. Then proceeds to tell Vengeance to go gather Roxanne for him, which triggers the next motorcycle level, which happens to be a boss fight. The motorcycle level is pretty much the exact same as all of the other ones. The only difference is this one has a cool optical illusion where you're driving up the world's tallest, or sorry, I guess it's not the world, Hell's tallest building. The premise is the exact same thing. You have sections where you have to dodge and not get hit, and then you have sections where you have to defeat the gangs on the motorcycles. After doing both of those things, you finally catch up to Vengeance, who you just have to do the exact same thing as the previous boss and hit him. And it must be our lucky day because we killed him just before the top of the building. After completing this, we unlocked a new move, which is cool. Then there's another cutscene that says that we defeated Vengeance and that we hightailed it out of hell. Then it also goes on to say these words that I don't know how to pronounce, but it says something about going to like Sans vagina or something like that. Honestly, I don't know. I left all the cutscenes in there so you can pause and read. After leaving Hell, we are now in a place called Ghost Town, and as you can probably see, it is the exact same as the rest of the game. We then continue on through Ghost Town, fighting essentially the same enemies that we were previously fighting, just ever so slightly stronger. And this is when I decided to check out the upgrade system. I mostly focused on health at first because I wanted a better chance of not dying and having to replay the game over again. So honestly, most of this game, like I've been saying, is just a repeat, but I wanted to show you just a little bit of the background because that is new. So this is what the Ghost Town looks like. Same goes for the next stage, which is a motorcycle stage. It's the exact same thing. You dodge when it says to dodge things, you attack when it says to attack things, you boost when it says to boost, and then you get to the end. This is the first motorcycle stage that introduces ducking, so you do have to duck under certain objects. Upon completing that, we unlock a new move, and then we continue to this mine. The only thing really noteworthy to talk about in this level is that there's this elevator shaft, and once you completely kill all the enemies that are on top of it, it starts moving, and then of course, just like everything else, you just have to complete waves of enemies that keep spawning. I just wanted to showcase this part because the background is actually moving, which has not happened in any of the previous levels yet. And since this game is so freaking similar, I just had to find something new to show off. When I finally got through all the waves of enemies and reached the bottom, I decided to spend some of my orbs and upgrade my attacks. So something that's really cool is when you upgrade your attacks, the animations for it actually change. And just so you guys can see that I'm not lying, I'm going to fast forward this part so you can see that it's essentially the exact same thing as the previous thing. You just make your way through the very linear level, you destroy every enemy that spawns, and then you get to the end. The ending of this level has another boss who is the exact same thing as the previous bosses. The only difference is they removed its tail and they reskinned it to look like a rock. This entire boss's moveset and everything else is just completely identical to the previous ones. The next stage starts with a cutscene that basically just says the demons seem like they're coming from the train station, and then the next stage we are walking outside of a train. Something interesting is that they started to sprinkle those mini bosses throughout the levels quite a bit more. So this level pretty much starts off by beating the same mini boss that you just finished beating in the previous level. I'm not even joking, look at the timer in the bottom left corner and compare them. There has only been a couple minutes between fighting this one and fighting the previous one, and that's including the cutscenes and me stopping through the menu. After beating the same boss 2 times in a row, we get a little cutscene that shows us grappling onto the top of the train and pulling ourselves up. And then the next level starts with us walking on the train. The only 2 real new things about this level is the fact that you now go behind objects so you can go inside of the train, which is cool. And then also the train carts are moving. And about 3.5 milliseconds later, we are face to face with another one of these guys, who I'm honestly starting to believe is just put in the game to try to pad it a little bit, because they're honestly the ones that take the longest to beat, and this game is already so extremely short as it is. After that, we unlocked a new move, we get a little cutscene, and now we are on another boss fight. This one's essentially the same thing as everything else. You just have to hit the person in the center, avoid the things that they are throwing. This one, when you run out of ammo, you do have to refill by going to the ammo boxes on the sides, and then pretty much just keep shooting them until they're dead. Once we beat the boss, we unlock another move, and then another cutscene plays. In this cutscene, we are told that we are too late and that they have Blackheart's body. I then grab her with my chain, she explodes. Fortunately, I survive, but also unfortunately some of her army does as well. We then meet this new character called Blade, who says he's going to go fetch Blackheart's body for us while we go do other things. It then informs us that Blackout's hooked up with Deathwatch and the Demon Ninjas, and that they hit the army base at Fort Nelson. This is also where I guess that we learn that Ghost Rider can turn into Ghost Rider and out of Ghost Rider mode if he wants to. I didn't know that. And then there's some more bullshit backstory that doesn't really matter. In the next level, we are in the underground base and we are introduced to a new enemy finally, which is unfortunate kind of because these enemies suck. So I guess it's more be careful what you wish for because it could be worse. So why do these enemies suck? Well, they're ninjas, and because they're ninjas, they can stick to the wall, and when they're stuck to the wall, they're kind of a pain to get to. Making our way through the stage, we get to a part where there's these military trucks that we can stand on. Also, I pressed a key combination that introduced this kind of power-up. I don't know what it is, but I could not cancel it. Once I enabled it, it just drained my mana bar, so that was kind of annoying. After we get past these military trucks, there's a little section here, and I'm gonna let you guess what's coming up. Did you guess it? Did you guess what was coming up? Did you guess the rock thing that is freaking everywhere? The next stage is, of course, a bike stage, which is the exact same thing. Do the exact same stuff. The only difference is that it looks different. So I'm just going to fast forward this part so you guys can actually see what a whole bike stage looks like. The next stage you start off by fighting a bunch of enemies, and then you transition into... Yep. After that fight, you make your way through the base, you go on another elevator, and another boss fight. Well, at least they didn't give him the rock guy texture again. After that, we have another cutscene where Blackout takes the military's Leviathan jet boat, and we have to chase him down and kill him. This boss fight is the exact same as all the previous ones. You just have to sit behind him, hit him, avoid his attacks that he does on you, and then you're done. After being the boss, we get a little cutscene, and it says that the hellfire in our body tells us that the demons already hit town and that Roxanne is in danger. Again, I don't know anything about this character, so I don't know if he actually does have some sort of spidey sense to him. Either way, I thought this level looked pretty cool with the flashing neon signs. We explore the city a little bit, we eventually get to the bar, and then we have another cutscene. The cutscene ends up just being us kicking a bunch of ass in the bar, and then this guy comes up to us and says that Roxanne is at the church. We get back on our bike and we do the same stuff as always. The only difference is there's a ramp at the end of this level that takes us onto train tracks. It's just a different change of scenery. When we arrive, we have to kill all these enemies and then use the stairs to ascend to the rooftops. Here we also see this new green goblin looking enemy with a big ass gun. And then when we reach the rooftops, you'll actually never guess, there is a new boss. This is a new boss. All we have to do to kill it is punch it. Your chain actually doesn't do any damage here, so you have to wait until they float down and punch them. Honestly, it's a really easy boss, but it's nice that it's not the same thing over and over again. Then there's yet another motorcycle level, but the only difference really in this one is that the tanker trucks are the thing that you have to duck under. After that, you're back to the city in this more like rundown area. I actually thought the signage and everything was very aesthetic. I then decided to try to use my punch for the first time ever, and yeah, that didn't go very well. Continuing on, all we have to do is fight these hordes outside the cathedral, and then we can continue in. I also spent some of my orbs and upgraded my chain, so now it has this fancy new animation. We then entered the cathedral, and we're looking for Roxanne. There's then this scarecrow that tells her she's a little tied up right now because, well, she's literally tied up. We tell him to stop bullying poor innocent women, and he says, sure, yeah, no problem. And then we actually get this new boss fight. I think it's kind of interesting that there are all these bosses leading up to this that are just copy and paste of the same thing, and then we finally start getting a variety near the end of the game. So for defeating this guy, it's the exact same as the other ones, you just have to hit him in the head. At least he has a different model, and also he does different attacks, so at least it's something different. Except it was all for nothing. The scarecrow tells us that the other guy that we're looking for is at the carnival. So we give Roxanne the hot shoulder and we continue on to the carnival. Immediately, the carnival has a very different aesthetic from any of the other levels, and all of the enemies are actually replaced. Well, they're just reskins, but they all look different. Farther along the carnival, we come to another boss, and it's actually a different boss again. I think it's so bizarre that the beginning of the game had so many bosses that were just copy and paste, and then later on we get so many that are different. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still the same bullcrap. You still have to hit him in the head. He walks very, very similar to those rock guys, but he is technically different. We then find ourselves on Carnival Highway. It's essentially the exact same thing as everything else. The one thing that is funny is I think these clowns are riding unicycles instead of motorcycles, so that's pretty funny. But at the end of the stage, we have the exact same boss as the other ones. It's a rock guy. You have to dodge him and avoid the rocks that he drops. Although he never dropped rocks from me, and I don't know if that's just because I was professional at this game or if he really doesn't drop rocks. I also think that the aesthetics of this carnival here looks really cool. We also run into another one of these witch guys, or these, I don't know what they're supposed to be, but we run into another one of them. I also really like the bumper cars and the fact that you can break them. And I also upgraded my chain, which you can see here. Now it has like a pentagon star looking thing in the middle. And of course, we run into another one of the same bosses. After doing another annoying bike level, we are met with a really, really, really long cutscene. Hey babe, wake up, new gameplay just dropped. Yeah, that's right. After that really long cutscene, we are now faced with the final boss. And thank God, this final boss is not just a copy and paste of everything else in this damn game. It is actually unique. Now, I didn't have any issues with it. I found it really, really easy. But at the end of the day, it was something new, so that was freaking awesome. But seriously, this is not even edited. You're watching me defeat the final boss in real time. That's how quick it was. After beating the final boss, we get through another cutscene, and basically it just tells us that evil is done for right now, but it can come back at any time, and we need to enjoy today for what it is. And that right there marks the end of the game. After beating the game, you unlock demonic mode, which means you keep all of your stuff, things just get harder, and you play through the whole game again. So when I finished beating this on stream, I gave it a pretty high rating, but now that I've sat here and I've edited it through, and I've seen it, and I've also got to sit on it for a little bit, honestly, this game kind of sucks. The whole thing is super repetitive. The main thing is that you just kill a bunch of enemies to progress to the next level. It's the same thing over and over again. And then they try to sprinkle in the motorcycle riding in between stages, but that's honestly the exact same thing over and over again. And even the boss fights. Almost all of the boss fights are just reskinned previous boss fights. Or actually, in a lot of cases, they're not even reskinned. They're just the same boss. The only two things that this game has going for it are the fact that the animations and honestly just the style overall is really good. They did a really good job at that. And then the other thing is the whole upgrade system was really cool. I just really wish that there was a better game built around that upgrade system because the upgrade system was awesome. So that's why my final rating for this is going to be a 1 out of 10. It may look pretty, it may have some cool features, but overall at the end of the day, the truth is this video sucked to edit. It sucked so much to edit. Meaning it's just not a good game. So after all that Debbie Downer stuff, let's move on to pick our next game. As you can see, I upgraded to a wheel spin instead of a spreadsheet and a random number generator. And our next game is the Koala Brothers Outback Adventures.